An entitled Karen demands that her kids are going to swim in a pond that is very clearly marked to have alligators and venomous snakes present in the water. And despite my manager pleading with her to please not go in the water or to even get close to the water in the first place, this entitled Karen refuses to take no for an answer. Here's what happened. So this took place many years ago before I became a photographer, but still worked for a company as a custodian for a resort. And the theme park complex is located in Central Florida. Something important to know about Florida is that we have a large alligator and venomous snake population. The locals often tell the tourists and their kids that if there is a body of water, chances are good there's an alligator or a snake in it. At the time, I was working as a custodian, and we had a tragic incident where somebody was taken out by a gator at one of our resorts. And this is because they were too close to the water's edge at sundown, which is when the gators are on patrol. As a result, we posted signs every 50 feet or so around the bodies of water stating that alligators and venomous snakes are present. Please stay out of the water. But of course, we joke that people just don't know how to read. Now, this takes place maybe 3 weeks after that person's passing, so people were still very much talking about it. I was doing my rounds around sundown when I noticed Karen and her 2 little kids very close to the edge of the lake, literally just a few feet away from one of those signs, and they were wearing swimsuits and were setting up towels. Now, my manager was helping me and he noticed the family as well. My manager goes over to alert the family to stay away, and this is the conversation that follows. The Karen looked at him and said, "So you're saying there's alligators in this pond?" My manager said, "Yes, ma'am, at least 2. The Karen, not believing him, said to him, "Well, how do you know?" My manager just said, "Well, I saw them." The Karen then asked how long ago it was, with my manager responding that it was just a month ago. This Karen then says something really stupid. She says, "Well, how do you know they're still there?" My manager says, "Ma'am, when alligators find a spot they like, they generally tend to stay there. Every body of water has a gator or a snake in it, so it's safer to just stay away." The Karen then says, "So you're saying there's alligators in this pond?" And they went in this loop for literally 10 minutes. And at this point, I could tell that my manager was on the verge of verbally bruising this lady. So I'm taking my time cleaning and waiting for my manager to deliver the verbal knockout punch. The Karen then shouted out, "I don't care if there's an alligator in this pond. My kids are going swimming in there. It is too crowded in the pool." My manager then said the next beautiful sentence. He said, "Lady, I'll personally put you and your kids on the next flight home if you don't leave." And this was finally enough to shut this Karen up as she grabbed her kids and stormed away. I high-fived my manager and we got back to work, with the both of us coming up with running jokes where we question if alligators truly are in this pond. Yeah, that entitled Karen is seriously a complete moron. Who in their right mind would go to Florida, a place that is notorious for having alligators and snakes, and say to your kids, "Okay, time to jump in this mysterious pond, go ahead kids"? Like, does she want her kids to get eaten? Because that's what happens. Like, seriously, if you Google the words Florida alligator and attack, you're gonna see a myriad of stories pop up that basically detail exactly what this lady was trying to do. So it honestly blows my mind that this Karen would be so irresponsible that she would not only encourage her kids to swim in this stupid pond, but also she would refuse to listen to somebody who lives there. Like, lady, I'm pretty sure the manager wasn't just making that up. They wouldn't put signs up and lie to the general public if there weren't actually alligators and snakes there that would happily eat any one of your kids. So overall, that Karen was so far out of line, it's not even funny. She put herself and her kids in danger, and that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being upset that my in-laws are coming along on my honeymoon? Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, my fiance and I met our sophomore year of college and started dating post-graduation. We have been together for 2 years, and my fiance was not close with his family growing up at all. In the 2 years we have been dating, I have only met his parents like 3 times, and that doesn't bother me. Like I said, he has a lot of resentment due to his upbringing, and just doesn't like spending much time with any of them. Nothing bad happened to him on their part, but outside of his basic needs being taken care of, there was very little emotional support. My fiance was given a terminal diagnosis a few months ago with a 2-year life expectancy. Treatments are not an option, so we are just living life to the fullest. After he learned of his illness, he and his family have gotten a bit closer in that they see each other more often. His family, who's also very, very wealthy, gifted us our honeymoon as our wedding gift. My husband and I chose a vacation in Mexico because we wanted a relaxing resort vacation and to go snorkeling together. It was gonna be one last bougie trip on our bucket list. But here's the thing, his parents also chose the dates of the honeymoon without asking us. So they chose to book the trip so that his birthday was during it. Then they said they wanted to spend his birthday with him, so they will be joining us. They did get their own suite at the resort, and both of his siblings got rooms at the resort too. Now don't get me wrong, I am very grateful that they are gifting us this experience, but I'm annoyed that they deliberately made it during a time that they could conveniently join our honeymoon. I know he's sick and I know they want to spend time with him, and my fiance won't say anything to them because he doesn't want to fight with anyone during his final time here, which I completely understand. I think I just wish they would have booked a separate trip for the family to go on rather than during our honeymoon, a time that we could have spent together alone, which honestly we rarely get these days. Between hospital visits and seeing friends and checking off things that he wants to experience, we are pretty busy. Like I mentioned earlier, money is not an issue and could easily have been made into a separate trip, but they chose to make the trip during his birthday, so they had the excuse to join in. When they told us that they were also coming along on the trip, I said that was a little bit strange, and now they are mad at me for not understanding how important it is for them to spend my fiance's birthday with him. The entire family thinks that I am wrong for being upset about this, and his parents have said I will barely even see them, so I shouldn't be that upset. But we are staying at the same resort with rooms literally right next to each other. What should I do? Honestly, if I can be completely honest with you, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand why you would say, wait a second, this is kind of weird, right? Like, this is your honeymoon, and honestly, if I had in-laws who came along with me on my honeymoon, I would lose my mind. There is no way I would be okay with that, and honestly, that's completely uncalled for. But unfortunately, the circumstances are way different. Your husband has 2 years left to live, and this is one of the few birthdays that he's ever going to celebrate with his family. So with that in mind, I don't blame the extended family for coming along. Sure, this is your honeymoon time, but seriously, just treat this like a vacation. I think if I was in your shoes, I would apologize and try to make things right for this trip, because this is a very weird situation, and under normal circumstances where you get to spend the rest of your life with your spouse, I think it would be completely reasonable to be upset with your extended family. So I don't think you're the jerk for having that knee-jerk reaction, but I think it would be in your best interest to make things right with the extended family, because this situation is very weird, and I think with all things considered, you really should just focus on the time you do have left with your fiance. My boyfriend said that if we have a house and kids, he would want his brother to live with us so that he could save for a house. But I was honestly really bothered by what he said, and now I'm not sure how to bring up the topic again, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So we have only been dating 1 month, so it's still early enough where I'm trying to sniff out any kind of red flags. We both want a house and kids and marriage. He says that he wants to buy the house and it be in his name, and all I would need to contribute to it is the electric bill and the gas bill, and honestly, that's fine with me. But then he says that he wants his brother to move in so he could save for a house. His brother is a couple years younger than my boyfriend, and I've never met his brother, so I immediately said, I don't want that. I explained that if we have kids, I'm going to not be okay with having anyone else in the house besides us and our kids. I'm also very worried that he has this attitude of, oh, this is my house, so it's my rules. He hasn't said that, but I'm worried about it. I don't want something held over my head that was his choice to make. He equated it to having a grandfather with you and said his grandfather lived with him growing up, but I did not think that was the same as a brother. I said I would be okay with it if he was with us because he's working really hard for a house and will leave in the foreseeable future. Now, if I'm going to be a working mom, I feel like I have to have veto power over a decision like this, but it didn't seem like he understood why I did not agree. So honestly, how should I conduct a conversation with him to tell him how I feel, lay out boundaries, and how to know that this is something to leave over? What should I do? Honestly, the fact that you're talking about buying a house and getting married and having kids literally 1 month into your relationship is a major red flag in my opinion. Like, seriously, why is this happening so soon? I can't imagine dating somebody and then 1 month in being like, yeah, what are we gonna do when we get married? It's like, are you kidding? I don't even know if I'm gonna stick around with you. I don't know, that's just such a weird early conversation to have this early in the relationship. But if we want to look at the hypothetical situation that's placed in front of you, the fact that he says he wants the house to be in his name only, that is a major red flag in my opinion. Like, why would it not be in both of your names? Is he having it so it's in his name so he can kick out whoever he wants? Like, that doesn't seem right to me. Also, when it comes to the brother thing, I would be upset as well. I'm right there with you. And also, how long are they gonna live there? Is this like a few weeks or a few months, or is this gonna be like a few years? Am I gonna look up 9 years from now and they're still living in the house with me and my family? Like, there's no way I would ever be okay with that, and I can completely understand why you would be like, wait, that's definitely not gonna happen. So in my opinion, I think you need to realize that it's way too early in the relationship to have these kind of conversations, especially if you're having second thoughts about even dating them. But based on what he has said, most of what he said, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. And if you do continue with this relationship, I just would be very careful with what you do moving forward. My entitled mother-in-law demands to schedule a 10-year-old's birthday party right in the middle of a California wildfire. Here's what happened. So for those who aren't in a wildfire region, usually what happens is most people quarantine inside their homes, wear a mask if they go outside, or leave the region if they can, until the smoke finally goes away. Schools get canceled and some employees work from home, and if you put a filter on a window, the filter literally turns black. Ashes fly around like snow, and it's really annoying if they get in your eye. Now, there were wildfires around Northern California, and the area looked like foggy San Francisco. This region wasn't evacuated, but it was close enough that tourism slowed down, air quality was toxic, and there were ashes everywhere. I had only been with my then boyfriend for a couple of months, and we visited his family on a couple weekends. His mom called and invited his 10-year-old sister's birthday party during one of these wildfires, and only non-family members showed up. We were invited because he was family and to compensate for the lack of guests. She didn't want to plan it for the weekend before or after, but instead it had to be that weekend. Even if the party took place indoors, most parents don't want their kids going to a birthday party in that air quality, or they may not even be in town. I'm not even sure if her friend's parents found out she let them use the outdoor jacuzzi. Even if it was for 15 minutes, I would be ticked if I found out my kids were using a jacuzzi outdoors when there were ashes flying around. Later on, I asked my boyfriend why she would plan a birthday party in the middle of a wildfire, and he explained that they moved a few years before from a rural country where wildfires were so common in the summer, most people went on with everyday life as normal. But we both agreed that while it may have been normal then, she hasn't realized most places are different, and we don't think his sister realizes that this is why only one person showed up. She might think everybody else just didn't go or just flaked out. His mom made a Facebook post about the party and mentioned how his sister feels down every year but still makes the best of it because they plan her birthday every year whenever they want, regardless of what's happening around them. Her birthday would have been a lot more fun if it had been planned on another weekend, whether it's a week before, after, or even a month later. But the entitlement to a single weekend is the reason this happens every single year. I didn't realize how serious the air quality was until we moved to this area, and despite working indoors most of the day, the time I spent outside commuting made me sick. I worked in a restaurant, and because I work with the public, I could see everybody around me getting sick and coughing like crazy. I moved from a place that also had wildfires, but didn't spend enough time outside to know how bad it was, and the smoke wasn't as heavy, so this is why I agreed to go. My boyfriend and myself agreed that it was a bad idea to go, and we definitely would not be doing that again. But at the time, he was going through some things, and visiting family was a way to escape. Things were good back then with what would have been my mother-in-law, but this is one of the first red flags I saw, and as of today, I'm no contact, and my now fiance barely talks to her. That's honestly insane. Like seriously, why on earth would you schedule a birthday party in the middle of a wildfire? Like that literally just doesn't make any sense. And I think the original poster has it right. I literally think this is just because they were being entitled and not because they had like a special date in mind or anything like that. They just said, oh, we're doing it on this day regardless of the wildfires going on around us. Now, here's the thing. If I was invited to this party or something along those lines, there is no way I would bother to show up to that place. Like seriously, did she really think anybody was going to show up to that party? Like the air quality is awful, nobody can breathe, and what does this mother-in-law do? Oh, she breaks out the jacuzzi and says, let's sit outside for 15 minutes. But I would be like, no, how about we go inside and like, I don't know, grab our rescue inhalers because I have asthma and I think I'm passing away. So if this was the first clue that this lady's a big walking red flag, honestly, I kind of don't blame you for going no contact because what she did was honestly insane and there was no good excuse for these kind of actions. Am I the jerk for refusing to spend Christmas with my ex's new family? Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a very complicated family system. There's me, I'm a 43-year-old male, and I live with my beautiful wife who's 42 years old. We also have 3 kids. I have a son who's 13 and 2 daughters, with one being 13 and another one 9. But I also have 2 kids with my ex, and both of them are 19 years old. Recently, she's gotten remarried and has another daughter who's 3 years old. And with that in mind, we've had a hard time with co-parenting. When the twins were younger, we lived in the same apartment building and tried our best, but stuff happened and her mental health got bad, and a lot of resentment built up between her and my family. I wanted to move on, and she couldn't seem to take care of her kids properly. The kids themselves are also train wrecks, though I guess I can't blame them based on who their mother is. But things are going a little bit better now since she has her new husband. She's settled down in a nice house, and this year she called to ask how we were doing Christmas. And that's when I asked her what she meant. I honestly don't like talking to her much and was eager for her to hang up the phone. She sounded like she was confused and said that she thought I would want to spend time with the girls, but I know what she really meant was spending time with her and her family. I told her that they're adults and they are welcome to make plans with me if they want to. She said that my wife and sister invited her, her husband, and kids to the annual Christmas Eve party. But I said, well, those are your plans. And then I hung up and I focused on work. Then this evening, my wife comes into my home office looking angry, and she asked me if I told my ex off. I said no. I told her the twins could make their own holiday plans plans, and my wife was not happy with this solution and told me that I needed to work harder to tend to both of my families. But I told her I have one family. Well, when I said that, she was utterly appalled by this and stormed out. Now, my wife, my ex, and sister, who are all best friends by the way, are calling me a jerk and saying I need to put in more effort for my ex and her kids. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I think your wife, as well as your sister and your ex, all have a very solid point. You have two families whether you like it or not. And in this situation, you are absolutely being a jerk. Yes, your two twins are 19 years old, meaning that they're adults and they can make their own decisions, but they are still teenagers and they still want their dad in their life. It really seems, based on what you're saying, that you're the only one who's combative with pretty much everybody in the family. Like, it really leads me to believe that you're the one with a problem and not anybody else. From what I'm gathering, it seems like your wife is on good terms with your ex-wife, not to mention your sister as well. You do say they're all best friends and they talk to each other all the time. So if anything, it kind of seems like you're the one with a problem in this extended family. And the fact that you would say the kids themselves are train wrecks, all because of their mother, honestly, that's so toxic, and that is such a horrible thing to say. So yes, I think the original poster is absolutely being a jerk, and I think that they need to be a much better father for their kids. My boyfriend and I agreed to get a puppy, but now he no longer wants the responsibility, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for almost 5 years now, and we've been living together for about 3 years. Now, I love him a lot, but we decided to get a puppy together, and the entire situation has made me realize that our priorities may not be aligned. We've been talking about getting a dog ever since we moved in together, and he's always been on board. We had been pushing it off as we both wanted to be in a position where our schedules and finances allowed us to put all of our time and effort into raising a puppy. I've saved up for years, and I'm finally at a point where I can change my work and school schedule around to allow for me to spend most of my days with a puppy. Now, my boyfriend does work from home, so his schedule is a little more flexible as well. Now that we both felt ready, we met with a breeder a few weeks ago and immediately fell in love. We put down a deposit, and now we are supposed to be picking up the puppy in 3 days. However, over the last week, my boyfriend has seemed uninterested. I've been puppy-proofing our house over the last 2 weeks, and he hasn't been putting as much effort into the process as I have. He just doesn't seem as excited anymore, as if the puppy blues have hit him before the puppy even gets here. A part of me feels like it's finally hitting him that we are about to go through a huge life change, and it's gonna be a big relationship step as well, and suddenly he's getting cold feet. But I also feel like he's not sure if he actually wants to take on the responsibility or even make the sacrifices necessary so he could raise this puppy. This morning I asked him how he was feeling, and I could tell that he was not very receptive. And right now I'm feeling devastated because I know I can't bring a puppy into our household if he's not 100% on board. I think it's mostly upsetting because he had never expressed any doubt to me, but something feels off now that we're only a few days away from getting our puppy. I guess my issue is that I have no idea now if he actually wanted or wants the puppy, or if he just doesn't know how to say no to me. I personally feel like I'm at a point where I'm ready for this, as I've spent so much time preparing for it in all aspects of my life. But I don't think he's ready to give up certain things like sleeping in or having time with his friends. But me, on the other hand, I am determined to do whatever it takes to give this puppy a good home, whether it's going through sleep deprivation or canceling plans. So how do I approach another conversation with my boyfriend about the puppy? Or will this cause resentment if I just keep bringing it up? I just feel like all my hope and excitement has been lost now that I'm most likely having to give up on my own goals and desires, all because he doesn't want to share the responsibility or even express how he truly feels. He hasn't told me outright that he doesn't want it, but I'm nervous that he's been acting differently now that it's almost real. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I can definitely understand where the original poster's coming from when they're like, oh man, I'm kind of worried about this. Because I think they have it right. Like, a puppy is a big responsibility, and that's something that you really do have to take seriously. And I can understand your logic where you're like, oh man, suddenly after we put down this deposit, my boyfriend's acting weird. And it really does seem like, yeah, he just doesn't want this dog anymore. Which that's fine, by the way, but you might want to figure that out before the puppy's in the house. It really wouldn't be fair for the dog to get to the home, settle in, and then the boyfriend be like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't want the dog. Like, that would be way worse than actually calling the breeder and being like, actually, we're having second thoughts. Because taking care of a dog is a big responsibility, and that is definitely something you really want to make sure that you're ready for. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.